Hey, paper peeps, welcome back to the Paper Fold. I'm your host, Sarah, and I'm so glad to be back with you. Before I get to today's magnificent guests, I have one announcement. By now, you have probably heard from the Greeting Card Association that noted the Greeting Card Expo will return this year virtually, May 20th and 21st. I'm still getting over my disappointment that last year's edition in San Francisco was canceled. However, I completely understand why an in-person event won't work for spring 2021 either. But I am thrilled that the Paper Nerd was asked to again sponsor the Noted at Noted Product Awards. 10 categories reflect the cutting edge of card design, including one just for retailers, Best Card Wall Display. Once again, all noted exhibitors receive one free entry and may submit 4 more for $25 each. Non-exhibitors can submit up to 4 entries for $50 each. So I'm hoping we will get plenty with which to dazzle them and with which to celebrate as a whole as an industry. To participate, just follow the brand new Noted at Noted button now on thepapernerd.com. Please be sure to bookmark the link for details and submission info. Then you'll be ready when submissions open up on February 15th. Now on to today's show and my guests Bailey Rivera and Emma James of Antiquaria. This range first came on my radar shortly after I started my blog, The Paper Chronicles, in 2013. At the time, I had a letter writing campaign where people would write to me on their favorite stationery and tell me why they loved it. I would share the letter online, and then I would send them a bunch of stationery that was donated by friendly sponsors for their efforts. Well, Bailey wrote me very early on, and I still remember picking up my mail at my post office box one gray day in Cleveland and marveling how amazing my name looked in her skilled hand in metallic gold ink on a robin's egg blue envelope. I wouldn't let myself open it until I got home to my letter opener, and I was simply dying to know who had sent this to me. So I did a little digging and I found out that Antiquaria was not just Bailey, but Emma too. And they currently live in 2 states. Emma is in Austin, Texas, and Bailey is in Littleton, Colorado. The two met in the Austin stationery store where Emma was designing invitations. Bailey walked in one day with her calligraphy portfolio and they immediately hit it off. A couple months later, Emma hired Bailey to do the calligraphy for her wedding invitations, and the brand was born shortly thereafter. Now, not every brand has a philosophy, but Antiquaria does. They call it the vintage modern design philosophy, and it arises via their masterful use of calligraphy, hand lettering, hand-drawn illustration, vintage etching, watercolor, and typography. It's designed to be approachable, not fussy, to feel natural and organic, and dare I say, to spark joy. For that reason, Antiquaria has been a minor obsession of mine since the day I first saw it. I would like to live in their beautiful, gracious world, especially lately. So, as you can expect, I have a million questions about how they make a brand work long distance and what they're up to these days. And make no mistake about it, they're plugging away. When I asked them to appear here, Emma wrote me, "We're scrappy and determined to get through the hardships so many small businesses face during this pandemic." I love that attitude, and I'm always so inspired by all they are up to. In August 2019, they opened a retail Mercantile space, and they are still also wholesaling launching an online shop at Creative Market, selling their own design tools to other makers. And now they also have a YouTube channel featuring calligraphy 101 tutorials, studio chats. To me, these are the it girls of stationery. And if you are not following them, you're just not keeping up. So I'll have Emma and Bailey right here after this. Hey, paper peeps. So by now, many of my listeners are familiar with the force of stationary nature, better known as Girl with Knife. But if you aren't, time to change all that. From the first moment I spied her booth at her New York Now trade show debut in 2019, I was smitten with this cutting edge range that the world was calling out for. We all just didn't know it yet. Everything is nimbly collaged to life, slice by careful slice by the talented and exquisite Alicia Castaldi. This stylish collection of cards, journals, and notepads that have sprung to life under this fashionista's exacting knife is sharp, snarky, sleek, and occasionally very sweet, just like that BFF who would love to hear from you right now. For that reason, whenever I get my hands on Girl with Knife merchandise, I hoard it and use it most sparingly. Alicia recently launched Gift Wrap, and if you're already a fan of her range, you're familiar with her patterns and quality, but these super thick sheets elevate any gift from off the rack to atelier. Her recent releases of Midnight Botanical, Rare Creatures, and Chasing Dreams bring the total styles that slay up to 10. And if you're like me and that you fall in love with a range and want to reside in that world, you're in luck. Alicia recently unveiled Knife House, which was one of the few good things I can think of that came out of 2020. That was when Alicia shifted her operation from LA to this newly renovated concept home in Palm Springs. This completely private, walled and gated estate features panoramic mountain views and countless luxe surprises. Take a tour through its magnificent blush pink doors at www.knifehousepalmsprings.com or find it on Instagram at Knife House Palm Springs. Good luck getting your jaw off the floor as you take in this perfect California adult playground. These glamorous digs are available for photo shoots, film projects, special events, and short-term rentals. But just as importantly, all that exquisite Palm Springs flora and fauna have inspired Alicia's soon-to-be-released journal and notepads. She tells me that they're also expanding into home decor, which I, for one, absolutely can't wait to see. So now that you've glimpsed this wonderful world, you need this cutting-edge lifestyle brand in your life. Find Girl with Knife in hundreds of shops across the U.S. and over half a dozen countries. Alicia and Girl with Knife have also been featured in New York Magazine, LA Business Journal, BuzzFeed, and of course, Stationery Trends. I've run her work there countless times. Alicia was one of our 10 designers to watch in 2020 and proceeded to live up to that designation when last May, 2 out of her 3 nominated cards took CHAP honors at the Noted and Noted virtual greeting card competition. Then, for our winter 2021 issue of Stationery Trends, Alicia designed the 10 designers to watch frontispiece for us. It is something else if you haven't seen it yet. Also, as of 2021, Alicia is represented by none other than the Daniel Richards showrooms in Atlanta and Dallas. Dan's eye is renowned in this biz, so his representing Girl with Knife is unsurprising, but it also means that this brand needs to be on your design radar stat. Check out this beguiling range at the recently refreshed girlwithknife.com. Right now, the theme is Season of Fierce, and I think we can all use one of those about now. I guarantee your stationery will slay. All right. Welcome, Emma and Bailey.
Thanks for having us. Hi.
So before we get into coronavirus, I want to touch on the evolution of your brand. Since you established yourself in 2010, you're already 11 years old. And it seems like you've kind of changed approaches a few times. From my perspective, it always looked really seamless, but I would love to, if you two could take me through the evolution of your brand and how your business model has changed in the past 11 years to accommodate that.
Sure. Do you want to talk about it? Do you want me to?
Oh, you talk.
Okay. Okay. Yes. It is quite the winding path, actually. But it didn't ever seem like super jagged as we were doing it. So essentially, Emma and I met in 2009. She was working at a wedding invitation store. I was a calligrapher, and we met through the invitation store that she was working at. And so I ended up addressing Emma's wedding invitations, and we kind of just like totally hit it off from there after collaborating on that project. And so we got margaritas one day, and we were talking about the wedding industry because she was obviously getting married. I was not engaged or anything yet at that point, but was in it in terms of being a calligrapher. So we were just kind of like looking at the trends and seeing what was going on. And we decided to open Antiquaria, which was a vintage housewares gift registry and shop. So it started off by curating china and finding awesome barware and, just like curating really cool housewares.
I think that's when I discovered you. And I remember, I feel like I went on your site and looked at like a PDF of like everything, all the antiques, all the glassware and everything shot and sort of juxtaposed with a few stationery pieces here and there, or like, an envelope and I mean, like, it knocked my socks off. And I just thought it was so, like, I hadn't seen anybody doing anything like that. And I thought it was so brilliant. And I loved it.
It was so fun.
Yeah. It was really fun. Yeah, we loved doing it.
It was, it kind of went together because it was like wedding related. So like we could style it like you were at a wedding. We were originally thinking of doing rentals, except then we thought about all of the vintage dishes you'd have to hand wash. And we were like, I don't think so. So a registry it was. And we would like lend them out for like beautiful photo shoots for, wedding inspiration style shots. And we would do the calligraphy or the invitation. So the invitation component actually came in pretty quickly in terms of styling the stuff. However, since I was running my calligraphy business and Emma was still working at the invitation store, there was kind of like a competitive, issue that like we couldn't really get into stationery at that point. Right. But what we did add pretty early on were our rubber stamps. So
I remember those.
Okay. Yeah, so we actually have relaunched them on our site, but I think we started with maybe like 10, and it was like save the dates and return address stamps so that people could create their own save the date. And I remember the first DIY tutorial we did was stamping it on the vintage hanky.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah. So like, finding a vintage hanky, which I'm sure we found it in an estate sale when we were finding dishes, and then stamping it in the center. And we created a tutorial, and then we reached out to Noel, it was a beautiful paper. Like, would you be interested in featuring this? And then like our DIY tutorials just kind of like snowballed from there with her. We would do them every other week, I think. But that was for 2 years.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really fun. That's really fun. And that must have been an education and it must have been a lot there that you got out of it.
Yeah, it was amazing. And I think because of that, eventually the stationery component, like once we added wedding invitations, which we did right around 2011, 12, which was when both of us moved to Los Angeles and moved the business to Los Angeles. So we didn't have any, like, that is when Antiquaria became both of our full-time jobs. So it took about a year and a half, 2 years for that to happen. And so that's when we added the sort of like, or pushed the major like printed stationery to Antiquaria, as opposed like before I was selling calligraphy invitations to my clients and Emma was selling custom design invitations to the invitation shops clients. So all of our stuff under the umbrella of Antiquaria happened in 2012. Wow. So that's what, yeah. So I know that.
And I mean, like your invitation suites were, I mean, like I think of that, like I think of like 2012 as like the heyday of invitations. Like at that point, they just got like, it was, you know, that every element was, you know, brides understood what a liner was, what a wax seal was, what a, you know, everybody wanted that. And they just reached their, you know, it was just flourishing. And
we did. And we had such amazing clients, and like we did, for the most part, custom invitations. So like each client, we would discuss like their wedding, and they'd get like sort of 3 different options, and then we'd go off of the one that they like the most. And so we had, it was like every single tiny detail, and calligraphy and hand lettering and the liners and hand painting and watercolor. And so that's kind of like where we really started developing, you know, our Antiquaria style, like of those things coming together for like the line, if you will. Because before that, we were doing stamps and like curating the dishes.
Right. So you really like the brand kind of came to life, and it almost was able, I would imagine that the invitations were just like the perfect segue into the greeting cards and journals and calligraphy components. That was like kind of the bridge that you guys took to start it with the more, for lack of a better term, mass-produced stationery. I mean, you really went from like an atelier to, you know, to more, not, I don't want to use the word mass produced, but it's not, you know, obviously it's not, every journal that you make is not custom to.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it would be, it's not mass produced, like Target mass produced, but you know, it is like, you know, if we order cards, it's like you're ordering and you're reordering the same card. And it's not like a one-off thing. And it's really hard to do, like, even if, say, like Anthropologie approaches you or something, like the amount of volume that you have to produce to make the margin work on a product that you then sell to them, like it's so different.
It's gotta be.
Yeah. So actually, it's interesting how we got into the product line. We decided, I think it was in 2013 or 14, we did the trade show boot camp, which is now the Proof to Product webinar. And we actually took it because we wanted to create invitation books for stores.
Okay.
Because we had, on our website, we had like templated wedding invitation designs of our most popular, and like you could just order them and customize the colors, etc. And so we're like, oh, this would be perfect for invitation books. And so once we got into that webinar, mostly what they talked about was greeting cards, notebooks, the stationery products, and they had very little on the wedding book market.
Right. I really, you know, when I started going to NSS in say, like, I think my first one was 1998, there were a lot of the greeting card people, but I mean, it was a split with invitations, and, you know, over whatever that decade or so, like, it's almost like there was just a schism, and like the invitation people just got less and less and less. And, you know, and the greeting card and journals and, you know, those types of items just got, you know, a bigger footprint.
Yeah. And I think we were thinking about it because, like, when Emma was working at the invitation store, obviously she was familiar with those products and, like, you know, what people were asking for and, you know, selling those. And so I think that's why kind of our mind first went there instead of a product line. I don't think we really thought that a product line was like a feasible venture capital wise, or like we just really had no idea that was going to be an option.
It was so hard to imagine how you could possibly sell enough cards that wholesale for $2.50 to like even come close to making a living.
Yeah.
Right.
And, it turns out we can.
Yeah.
Yay!
But when we took that course, what what we hadn't really considered, like we hadn't done the deep dive in our profit margins. And so our business was set up direct to consumer. So we had no problem making our margins. But then when we realized we'd essentially be making half the profit on the same amount of work to wholesale
for wedding invitations.
Right. Oh yeah. Oh my goodness.
Like we were like, is this something that we really want to do? And then we're like, let's try this product line. Let's try the greeting cards. It seems like that's what everybody's talking about. So it was a happy accident. I don't think that we hadn't really even considered really going down that avenue until we took that webinar. And I'm so glad we did. It was,
it's such a great community. And I think it's just so collaborative and everybody shares so that, you learn from others' mistakes. And
yeah, well, and just to have like the sort of insight of like, oh, okay, they're talking about selling greeting cards. Like, where else are you really presented with that? Like, I don't know, like, it just like, it was a happy accident. It just like pushed us in that direction. And then also at the same time set us up for like a game plan of how to execute that. Like we obviously already had a brand and had everything, but it was like, we're going to go to NSS. We need to put out this many products out first in a catalog. And like, it just like helped you kind of get the playlist with how to get started. And then you obviously have to build from there. But we had printers and stuff. So it was like not just like from scratch that we had to start it.
But, yeah, you had done all this, and you had already worked together and, you had a lot of that. What year did you debut at NSS? I remember it.
It was 2014.
2014. Yeah, that seems about right. Yeah. And I remember, was your booth like tannish or it was like a peach, but your cards were on the shelves. I just remember they popped like on the background. I can't tell you what I had for breakfast, but I remember your booth from 2014.
We called it the Peach Pit.
Yeah.
Oh, the Peach Pit. Oh, how 902 went. That's awesome.
I know.
Yeah, that was, yes, very good memories of the Peach Pit. It was like, and it was so well lit. Like I remember having like so many lights that like it was like blinding people. But I also think it like made people like, it was like, wow, okay, let's go.
Oh yeah,
because it was so bright.
It was like a movie set. Like you're like, like, oh, I better go look in there. No, I mean, like it was great. And you started with greeting cards, and then, or did you do greeting cards or journals first, or did you roll them out at the same time? Because you did those little journal sets, right? Those were so cute. You were one of the first.
We did both.
Oh my gosh.
I think that first NSS, like we definitely had greeting cards. And then I think we added the rainbow of notebooks and notebook duos.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we didn't start with them, but I think because we started in August and then we went to NSS in May. So like the line had been in existence for a little bit, like 6 months prior to going. So we had one or two small releases before NSS.
Mm-hmm. All right. But so the brand, but at that point you had a wholesale model, you could live in different places and continue to evolve. I assume, where were you guys shipping out of?
Austin.
So you had the whatever storage and okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. It was a long time before. I mean, it wasn't until we moved the business, or at least the operations, to Colorado. We were working out of a storage unit. It was very like,
it was actually 3 storage units in the city.
Yeah, we just kept adding storage units as we ran out of room. So
I mean, that's a great way to grow,
Yeah, I mean, really, because overhead, like commercial overhead, is like, what did it triple our overhead to move?
Yeah, I mean, Austin, even in 2013, 2014, like the real estate had gotten so expensive. I don't know how people do it, but yeah, we were just like, all right, we'll just set up some shelving in a storage unit and go get the stuff when we need to ship it. So, and then we ended up having this whole storage unit that was like a little shipping station.
That's great, but it's so brilliant. You know, storage units are safe. They're manned 24, you know, most of them are manned 24 hours a day. They're well lit. I mean, it's not like you're going to some, you know, shady part of town warehouse.
Right,
Right. Right. Like, I think it's really smart. And so, okay. So when did you move? So when did you move operations to Colorado? I assume that's when you moved to Colorado, Bailey. Is that right?
Actually, okay, I moved to Colorado in 2015 and we moved the operations in 2018.
Okay.
So everything was operating out of Austin until 2018. And that is when we moved and got the commercial space and hired our like actual first full-time employee, because prior to that, like my mom had been working full-time doing the shipping for us. And like love her, but we were like, you need to be able to retire, you know, because like she was so busy, like she was so full-time, like extra full-time, that like she had a hard time even coming to visit here because, you know, there'd be so much work that would pile up and stuff. So we're like, yeah. So we just decided to like be like, okay, well, this is, you know, like there's still going to be things for you to do because she loves being involved, but you don't need to be working 60-hour work weeks, and you know, like,
that's so sweet. I mean, like in the days of trade shows, I mean, it was always so special when you go in and someone's mom is helping them in the booth. Like I get a huge kick out of that. I love the husband-wife teams, mother, daughter, sister, brother. Like it's so like, I don't really, well, you know, this is the only market I cover, but I don't see that in other markets as much as stationery. And it's so fun. And part of what I think is so alluring to me about Antiquaria is that your brand is different from so many, in that you've got like your friends, great friends, but you're not, you know, you're not related, but so you've got two creative minds putting everything together. And that can be really tough for creatives. I've worked on enough magazines and other projects to know that, like, you know, they butt heads. Everybody has their own aesthetic. You guys make it look easy. Can you give me a sense of your creative process when you are bringing something to life and how you make everything both your own?
It's always been really easy for us, like very effortless. And at this point, after working together for now 11 years, I think we have a bit of like a hive mind. But we always start with like brainstorming session. We'll pull images from Pinterest for inspiration, like mood boarding. And, you know, at this point with the product line, we're kind of like, okay, these things are selling really well, or we're missing stuff in this category. So we'll kind of like just riff off of each other. And then I go off and make some artwork and then show Bailey and we review it. And then she adds lettering to it. And, you know, I'll usually do like a rough mock-up of like where I'm envisioning her beautiful calligraphy going. And then she goes off and does it, and it's always like exactly what I had in my mind. So it really truly is like effortless. I don't know if we've ever had a design argument.
I don't think we
ever argued. I think we're both very conflict adverse.
I definitely am. But I also like, when, you know, like thinking about this, like we really, like I could see how that could be really hard, and like, you know, it's much harder, like for instance with my husband, like picking furniture or like a wall color or whatever. It's like we have different tastes to a certain extent, although he usually just lets me, like if he doesn't hate it, default to whatever I want. But you know, I just like, I don't feel like I do feel like we have such a similar aesthetic that it really has never been like a, what are you thinking kind of thing. I don't know.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. I mean, that's like, you know, in Jewish people, there's a Yiddish word called beshert, and it means like when you meet like your love, the person you were meant to be with, you'd say, oh, it's beshert. It's sort of like business beshert with you guys. Like you were sort of meant to like work with each other and like bounce off of each other. That's awesome. I mean, you're so lucky.
We are. I mean, I think it's easier to have a business partner, honestly, to have somebody to bounce like ideas off of, especially because like I did run a business by myself for 2 years, and it was so much harder by myself than with Emma to be like, what do you think about this? Or like, oh my gosh, this person emailed, like, how should I respond? Like,
Right.
just to have that built in is just so special.
I think it's amazing.
And we're lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And you guys that can sort of decide, well, this is our stance. This is going to be how our brand deals with this or that or the other thing.
Yeah.
We also, I think neither one of us take it personally. Like, Antiquaria is like our boss essentially. So we're like, we're going to work. Like, I'm creating artwork for Antiquaria. She's creating lettering for Antiquaria. And it's not, it's its own entity. So it's not like either one of us are making this like really like big artist statement of like, this is my heart and soul. It's very much who we are and our creative, our collective creative expression. But we just, it feels very much like we're doing this job for our business.
Right. Right.
It's like a third person, like.
Yes. No. And I mean, I agree. I think as a creative, it took me a really long time not to have that, like to be able to let go of the ego in your work a little bit, like, okay, we can change, we can move things, we can change things. You're not going to hurt my feelings if you want to switch up everything. Like, I mean, I've worked with writers who like, you cannot change a word. I mean, it's like they wrote the Bible and, like, it's like, look, I mean, I'm really, everybody's on the same team. You want to make it the best you can. It's not really about ego. It's about, putting something out there that's, true to yourself and that people, are going to enjoy using and get something out of. Hey, Paper Peeps. So Kitty Meow Boutique has been a fabulous client of mine for a while now. So hopefully many of my listeners are familiar with not just the dazzling wares from this Chicagoland house of paper, but also its amazing founder, a force of nature better known as Catherine Hildner. This mom of two, with another scheduled to arrive soon, has created a most intoxicating stationery range. I define the Kitty Meow aesthetic as polished and very smart. Think of the sharpest outfit you own that you feel like $1 million in, but in stationery form. Everything from typography to envelope choice comes together to pack a most enticing punch. But this range is not just about the surface. It's about honoring those connections with those we care about most. And you'll see once you visit kittymeowboutique.com that the wares are divided into witty and sweet because, as Catherine puts it, sometimes you feel a little saucy and sometimes you don't. But Kitty Meow Boutique is so much more than just another pretty face in the marketplace. The empowering messaging found on her cards, invitations, journals, coasters, art prints, and enamel pins elevates the range into something that makes you feel not just seen, but good about yourself too. Everything is essentially a little lift, visually and emotionally, for not just those you love, but you as well. Not only is Kitty Meow available for your personal shopping needs, it's also available wholesale to all those shops looking for something new with which to excite their customers. She's on Fair. Visit kittymeowboutique.fair.com and get your shop started. Finally, I think what I love about Catherine most is that she is really all about living your best life, as you'll see for yourself beneath the education tab on her site. She offers KMB Signature Collective, a mastermind for women in the product-based business world who have a love for paper and giftable items, who have an idea and a plan, but need guidance and support to be successful in their efforts. I so agree with Catherine. It's so important to be surrounded by like-minded women and leaders who are willing to put in the work to lift each other up. For that reason, it's not a course. It's a friggin' transformation, people. And Catherine has also started my second favorite podcast, Dreams to Plants, with another brilliant force of nature, my girlfriend Renee, to elevate your daydreams to actual, tangible plants. Oh, and if you're on Clubhouse, follow Kitty Meow so you can tune in to her weekly room Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's called Small Business Savvy, Insider Secrets You Need to Know. I checked it out for myself last week, and it was just the dose of inspiration and confidence my day needed. So get those good vibes going at kittymeowboutique.com and tell them Sarah sent you. You opened your Mercantile in Littleton in 2019. Obviously, it is a showcase for Antiquaria product, but you brought in other ranges too. Can you share a bit about the criteria for expanding your brand like that? Roughly, how many vendors did you bring in? And to your mind, what do they bring to the table?
When we decided to open the retail space, it was more because the space we found, like Bailey called me up one day and she's like, hey, I was downtown Littleton. It's super cute and historic, brick front buildings, walkable. She's like, there's this space for rent. And I was like, do you love it? And she's like, yeah, I love it. I was like, go look at it. Like, let's just see. And so that's actually what got us to move the whole entire business up there. The total space is 1,700 square feet. And there's like a temporary wall that splits the front retail space from the back workspace. So the main reason we got that space was to have everything in one place and not in 4 storage units. But this space, she'd be in there and, they'd be in there working because the retail wasn't open. And she's like, people are walking by. It's this huge bay of windows. There's tons of natural light. It was just such a lovely space. We were like, we can't not. We've got to do this.
Right. I mean, it looked beautiful. I remember I got the email announcing your Mercantile and I put it aside. I was like, oh, this is amazing. I have to do something with it. I don't know what. I'll put it aside because it looked amazing. And so really the story behind the expansion is it found you.
Exactly. And then when we were deciding what was going to go in the store, it's about 600 square feet. The front wall is all windows. We couldn't bring really any other card lines in because we honestly can't even fit all of our cards on the wall.
Yeah, no, but really, we can't.
The way we approached stocking the store was like, does it complement what we make? Is it something that we can't make? And then also just considering who our neighbors are, it's a really small community. So we wanted to make sure that we looked different. We weren't carrying things that other stores were carrying, that we were bringing something unique to the table. And then once the store was open, it just kind of dictated itself. It turned out that sustainable home products did really, really well. So we brought in more of those, and people would come in and be like, oh, where did you get the plants? Because we had tons of plants in there. And we're like, started selling plants and baskets. So it was really, it was, and Bailey, how many vendors do we work with? I don't know off the top of our head.
Not a ton. I would say probably like 15 to 20.
Okay. So
when we were
small.
Really purchasing. Yeah, it's very small. I mean, the space is small. There just like is not a ton of display room, especially when you consider like we, trying to put out a lot of our line and products as well. So we had to be, we tried some of our favorite like stationery lines and like textile stuff, like tea towels and napkins, because like that is Emma and I love that stuff, and it's something that we don't produce, and like we didn't get a great response to it, which was really super surprising. And it was just like, okay, well, I guess like we're not gonna pursue stocking that type of stuff in the future.
I guess it's
as much as we love it. Yeah, I guess it's plants and baskets. Yeah, it was like we couldn't keep beeswax wrap in stock. We couldn't keep the silicone bowl covers and stuff in stock.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to think of what else, like the straw sets from Design Works Inc. We could not keep in stock.
Yes.
It's like this super random stuff that we were just like, I mean, we think it's awesome. It's like part of my personal values to like tread lightly and everything. So it makes sense, but it's surprising just considering like who I kind of thought like our market was going to be versus like actually once we stepped into it and we're like, servicing, walk-in customers, what they were responding to. So
isn't it funny? I mean,
yeah,
but I think a lot of people, I wouldn't say it's stubborn, but you will have in their mind that this is the store they want and this is what they want to sell. And then, they don't make that sort of pivot to be like, okay, this is our audience and this is what they want. So I'm giving it to them.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's really smart. And I also think it's smart. Like when I think of the really tiny stationery store, I think of the sort of what I think of the old guard, these little stores packed with 50 lines and, there's stuff everywhere you look. I mean, you took much more of a minimal modern approach, which obviously is much more, your aesthetic, not shoving things on every surface and, that
I think a lot of our, competition in the area like aesthetically is the more like old school, like there's something to look at like in every single space, which like can be really lovely to shop. I find slightly overwhelming sometimes, like I don't really get the opportunity to shop like that anymore, but it's like it was just not it wasn't in keeping with our brand aesthetic, but that was like the majority of the stores that were down there. So like let's differentiate ourselves as well, like put as much as we can in without it feeling like you're being like consumed by products. So
it's interesting. I think it's more of like not to use the millennial word, but it is sort of like the evolution of retail, like where it's going. I mean, it did used to be like just buy everything and throw it all at your customer and see what they're going to buy. Now it's, now it's much more developed, and that's cool that you guys could be the first one. I mean, like, because people must have absolutely loved it. I mean, I'm sure some of them were just like, what is this? But then there were others.
No, we got a super awesome response. So we opened in June 15th, 2019 was when we opened. So we were only able to be open like 9 months before the forced shutdowns. So, I feel like that is not a good amount of time to even get like discovered properly. Really, like the foot traffic and, building that. So the best thing that like I see is now on online orders. Sometimes we'll get like for Christmas, I remember we got a husband that was like, this is my wife's favorite store. I'm going to come pick this up, but we're always together. So I'm going to have to figure that out. Like, and so like that sort of feedback is just like so awesome. And obviously that was like a local person that like found us like during those 9 months. So that's so special. And that's like what makes it worth it, I think. So yeah.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Like you impacted that woman's world, and her husband knows.
And he was probably dragged there many a time.
So, you opened it in August 2019, but then, you had this space and you got into a pivot. I think when I wrote these questions, your Mercantile is still open by appointment. Is that the case? And but now it's become your studio for filming. So can you expand on that? And I would love to hear too a little bit about your YouTube channel, which is
I know. Yes, putting this introvert in front of a camera. So basically when we had the like forced stay-at-home orders, which kind of happened, well, we actually had closed a week prior to being forced to close in March. We had a calligraphy workshop scheduled, and we canceled it like 2 days prior, just being like, oh, we should be super cautious. Like little did we know a week later, like the government would be shutting us down like properly. So we just have decided based on, like protecting our employees and, anybody that's in the space that we are not like inviting the public in because we are fortunate that we don't have to, because primarily our business is wholesale and shipping and online fulfillment. So we need to make sure that everybody's healthy so that we can keep that running. And just like, there's no reason to sort of, for us to run the risk of like putting somebody up there.
And you don't even want to, and if you're open by appointment, I think that's smart, because the person, you have to have a little bit of interaction with them before they come in. And so my guess is you probably share your policy, your very safety policy. Right. So everyone's on the same page before they come in, and it just keeps everything, friendly and upbeat.
Yes. Yeah. And one of the best things we actually did was like, as soon as all that happened, we had, all of our employees like start working on migrating all of the Mercantile product into our online shop, which fortunately was already set up because we have had that set up since the beginning. And so all of the Mercantile product is now on there. So like the lines that we stock that sold well for us, we have continued to reorder, and we now have included in our Shop Antiquaria website. And we also added like a curbside pickup option. So we actually probably get more local business through like, oh, I'm going to just shop online and pick curbside pickup. And then we give them a call or email and like, oh, your order's ready. And then they come and pick it up. And that's been like the best sort of like local thing that we've had. And most of the appointments have been like, I'm walking by, I see a plant I want. Can I come in? Can I come buy it? Like, it really hasn't been anybody that's like just really dying to like browse for a long time. It's like, oh, I see something through the window that I want.
There's always a reason. And I mean, I love curbside. I think curbside delivery was made for introverts. Like, it's like the best thing in the world.
It's the best.
Yeah. So anyway, as soon as sort of like we were like, wow, this is, not a short term, like we're not going to be able to open our door for a while. I think it was sometime maybe July or August. We like decided, let's like make everything in the front, like not merchandised for shopping, but merchandised for shipping, like pretty, but very like organized by
but item. Like ready to go.
Yeah. Because the back is obviously all our product. So it's basically like set up to pull from the front now. But then like there's now this like big open space and it's not merchandised anymore. And so I had kind of had an idea about like teaching an online class, and was like, oh, videos. And our studio manager, before she worked for us, she's a photographer. And so I was like, oh, I wonder if like she could film me like doing tutorials or teaching calligraphy, or like what would this look like? So it just kind of started with that. Like, I mean, especially in the summer, business was like incredibly slow. So we were like trying to find ways to utilize our employees and things for us to do and just like stay busy, like stay active, try to like keep pushing forward and be creative. And so we just started filming like lessons and tutorials, and like from some of those, like I was like, hey, let's put this up on our YouTube channel, which we had. I had put stuff up.
You had already, you just set it up and then sort of forgot about it.
Right. So I think like I'd put up videos in maybe like 2013 or something, and like never responded to comments, just was like, here's some
sort of forgot about it.
Videos. Yeah. And like, oh, and also, like, oh, we have calligraphy supplies. Like, so when we would do something, be like, oh, I'm going to throw up a video as like a reference for somebody that buys our supplies, like how to rule guidelines. But it was not like I'm talking to you, like this sort of new YouTube, like vlog podcasty thing that I super enjoy watching as I'm sitting on the couch, like knitting or cross stitching or quilting or whatever. So that was sort of where it came from, was like, we can't connect with people. We had started teaching workshops in 2020.
Yeah, you always did a million workshops, and you have a community of, calligraphers, just lovers of it, that you've already over the years, worked with and collaborated with in various ways. So, it's a natural extension.
Yes. So, and especially like that, and we don't know when that's going to like be safe to do again. It was like, okay, let's do this. Like, let's invite people into our space. let's have like try to have a conversation with them. And that has felt really, really awesome, because I feel like Instagram has so many different features that I feel like that gets like lost a little bit. Like it doesn't stay still. Does it disappear? Where does it go? Like YouTube is just like, you can create like a program or a tutorial, you can reference back to it, like you can link to it. And so that's why that like platform sort of made sense to invest like time and energy into.
I mean, it looks great. I really think it's like so polished. I'm used to my daughter, I have a 14-year-old and she's really into YouTube. In fact, she started a channel during the first pandemic, the first part of the pandemic, because she had nothing to do. Yeah. So she started a channel, and I was like, well, this is good. This is a good activity. She can learn editing and, all these other things. And it really kept her busy too, which I loved.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. But I'm used to, she'll show me the people she loves James Charles, and she'll show me like his video. Like I'm used to like that caliber of video. And so when I saw yours, I was like, Veronica, come watch a video of theirs. I want to see what you think. Cause I was like, already the channel looks so different. And so we watched your gift wrapping video, which was amazing. Like I learned about wrapping a gift that I never knew. And we watched it, and I just kind of wanted to see her response. She was like, "Oh wow, these are really good. Like I would like to try some of this, but but it's not like James Charles. It only makes sense if you're 14."
Yeah, I was like, I've never seen that. I'm like, teach me how to garden, teach me how to knit.
But I love that you chose it, and now that you've explained to me why you chose that platform, it's so perfect, and I think it's brilliant, and I think there is like this huge craft component on YouTube, but I think your presentation of it it's an extension of your brand. I mean, you can tell the minute you go on your channel, like, okay, this is not like all those others stations where like people are making stuff out of balloons.
I think that was like one thing I was like seeing was like videos in other kind of categories. So I was like, wow, like these are really like beautiful to watch. Like they're just visually inspiring. And like, I want to do that for, DIY and calligraphy and stationery. And like, we can just do this in our own way. And I just like, it just kind of came to me as like, oh, like we should do this. And it has come together, and it's really fun to do. It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. I know.
But I think it is one of those things that is like, it's a real creative leap for me, and like for the team. And so it's been nice to like kind of exercise that and have that bit of a distraction. Absolutely. And hopefully it builds, and like it would be just so wonderful to have an online community in that space as well, because I think that there's a lot more back and forth interaction. Potential.
It does. And people, and like people are missing that so much. So it's wonderful. And the best thing about it is that once you put it up there, you always have this body of work.
Right.
That you can reference back to. So it is a lot of work, but like, every video you put in, that makes your library, that much more impressive.
Yeah. And you can always refer people to like, I think the next video that's going to come out is like how to mix your own ink color out of gouache. And so it's like, oh, if anybody ever had a question about that, you could be like, here's a video to help you or whatever.
Right. You're also on Creative Market, an online marketplace for design tools. Emma, you told me that you make way more artwork than you can ever use in your product line. So now you are putting it out there for others to use and enjoy. When I approached you for this interview, at that point you were working out the kinks of font design so that you can share your hand lettering. That is so cool. Can you share how it is being used and where you think it might end up?
Sure. Well, just to backtrack just a second, when I create artwork, especially if I'm doing like any watercolors, like if we're going to have like a watercolor floral greeting card, I rarely paint in a composition, and I usually paint all of the components to a pattern individually and then put them together in Photoshop. So I end up with this like body of design elements essentially. And Creative Market's been around for a long time, and we're so late to that party, but I was like, oh my gosh, there's this whole design marketplace of these design tools that you can buy graphics or photo mock-ups or fonts, and it's just a really beautiful creative community of designers that are putting out these tools. And we design everything ourselves, so I'm not the designer that is so client facing that like, oh, they want this, they want watercolor floral, but I don't do watercolor, so I'm going to go on a place like Creative Market and purchase watercolor elements that then I'm going to use in my design. And a lot of designers work that way, especially when you're working with clients. You need to meet their needs, and if you can't, you need to figure out a way to do that. Mm-hmm. So it, much like Bailey with YouTube, this summer when everything was really quiet, needing stuff to do, I started going back through our enormous library of artwork and creating collections of graphics that, are sold now on Creative Market. And it's still really new for us. And it's super exciting, the possibilities. A goal for us is like looking at avenues of passive income. So that's something that I can put up there and essentially sell forever. But it's also, we had our design assistant, play around with some of the graphics that we offered. And I'm like, hey, design with this and see what you come up with. And it's so cool to see her do some like branding projects using my artwork in such a different way, like her aesthetic, but using these elements. And
yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's really fun. The fonts are much slower going. I've made a few fonts out of my hand lettering, which we do use sometimes. Mostly it's Bailey's calligraphy, but my hand lettering, if you ever see lettering on our cards that looks like super janky and not perfect, that's mine. But no, it's still completely our aesthetic and it works out. But I created a couple fonts using some of the styles that I use, and now it's like streamlined our design process because I don't have to hand letter and then scan and vectorize and do all these things. I just plug the font in and I'm like, oh, it's done. So
right. And it's still from you. It's not like you didn't create it. It's still yours. It's just took a little shortcut.
Yeah.
No, I understand.
Yeah. So that's just, a new creative endeavor and something to just practice design skills and, work on putting together presentations and, instead of just dumping everything into a file, it's like really useful exercise to like put everything together and be like, here it is. And now Bailey and I were just talking today because I've designed some original collections that aren't out yet. And now we're like, well, maybe we want to use it in the card line. We're like, we can use it.
No, but we will be. Yeah. I mean, like the more I think about it, I'm like, I just really want to see this on greeting cards, or like she's done some like patterns and made them repeats. And I'm like, I'm going to print these on fabric and make something with them. It's like, so we're using them like also for the business and personally too. So the exercise has like a lot has come from.
Yeah. I mean, isn't that funny how you create something and you think of it like when you're creating it, you're telling yourself it's for one thing and then you finish and you're like, you know what? I think I like it better as a fill in the blank. It's, I think it's like not being wedded to your idea and letting it sort of go in the direction that feels the most, authentic and right. Mm-hmm. So what are you hearing from your community that they want, if we're going back into, another lockdown during winter, most of the country is, pretty cold and, we're not seeing each other socially. What are you hearing from your customers that they're wanting and how are you addressing it?
So one interesting thing that we saw over the holidays was that we could not keep our calligraphy kits in stock. So I think it is sort of the activity-based products that are definitely selling really well. People want to learn stuff. They want to stay active. They just want to keep learning. And I know personally, I feel the same way too. That's been sort of like a great thing for me. Like stress relief, etc. So we, Emma and I are both makers. We both come from actually textile backgrounds. And so that's always been a component to us personally, and like behind the scenes. So we're working on expanding our like kit options. So like, you know, the sort of like DIY style product, is what we're sort of like leaning towards, like filling that space in the market, like embroidery kits, cross stitch kits, mending kits, those sorts of things where like people can have a practical skill that, you know, you're doing something with your time that's, you know, important and like also helps you unwind. And all those things can be used for that purpose. So after, you know, not being able to keep the calligraphy kits in stock and like seeing how well those have done, and we've had those for years, and they always do well, but this was like, we can't keep these in stock. Like, and we also can't, they're not fast to restock either. So, you know, it was really interesting to see that happen in November and December. So anyway, yeah, it's something that we're really, really excited about and actually talked about for many years. And I think that this response and like the current situation is just like the kick in the pants that we need to actually get our act together and do it. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, kits are it. I mean, it's all inclusive. It's beautifully presented. Everything that you need is in there. I can't wait to see your embroidery kits because I want one.
We'll be happy to send one to you. Yeah.
Thank you. And Emma, I'm sorry I interrupted you. You were about to say something about the kits. Something
that Bailey and I find, especially as makers and liking crafty things, is that a lot of these traditional crafts like cross stitch and embroidery, it's hard to find kits or patterns or anything like that have like a more modern aesthetic, that like the end product doesn't look like it came from your grandma's house, which can be, it's fabulous in its own way. But yeah, so we're making sure that it's like our aesthetic and packaged in a really beautiful way, and something that like if we saw on the shelf, like we would be like, yes,
yeah, I need that.
Yeah. And also like our goal and hope for them is to also have like the kits specifically sit together so that they can also be wholesaled, so that they can be accessible to all of our retailers who are probably also facing a similar demand from their customers as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I haven't been in my local paper source in a while, but I mean, like, it's such a natural fit, and they've been really into the, paper flowers. I mean, that's a whole like different thing, but it's like they're pushing, you know, it's just, you know, these age-old techniques are coming into play again. And, you know, people are, you know, it's a way to be nostalgic, but it's also a way to look forward and a way to grow, you know, and feel like, you know, you're not just binge watching shows. Like let's come out of this with something.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we just want to come out of it, but yes, if you can come out of it with, you know, a new skill, or just, you know, actually even like the community around it. I like have recently taken up cross stitching again after many, many years of not. And like the community around that specifically is very cool. And like I've met someone that lives in the UK and I've been talking to her, and she also has a 2-year-old. And so you just never know what like actual community you're going to build around it as well. And I think that is our goal for 2021, is to like garner community, grow our community, just like really be involved in that community, and to put things out there that like meet that goal.
Absolutely. I haven't done it in a long time, but I used to needlepoint a lot. And, you know, like most small towns, we have like a few needlepoint stores, you know, that I would go to. And the one that I really liked, I mean, you know, I'm 51, and when I went in, I probably lowered the average age by like 15 years. So, you know, it's a totally different crowd, but they had a guild at this one. And so whenever I would go in to pick up something, they had like a really long table, and there was all these ladies sitting around the table working on whatever they were working on, and laughing and eating and chatting. And like, I always was like, oh, they're so cool. I want to hang out with them, you know? And and I never really had the nerve, but I think that's so cool. It's the idea of creating that camaraderie and that community and the virtual space for a new, generation of crafters. I mean, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, we had started a makers meetup in the store prior to, closing down. And that was so cool. People would come and embroider or journal or knit. And so I'm super excited to get that back up and running in person as soon as that's safe. But essentially all of it's like, how can we do this also virtually and online? And just like, it's just the most fun community to like bring all the creative minds together. So
it really is. It really is. And you feel energized when you're, around people and to see projects develop. Like it's really cool.
Yeah.
So instead of asking you to give me a shameless plug, because I'm going to tell everybody where to find you, what is your current favorite item or service that you're offering right now?
I'll go first. My favorite thing, and it's a relatively new product for us, but we started making stickers this past year. And one of the things that we have made, which is as far as I can tell from my market research, I apologize to anybody that's listening if you already make this product, but it's an A2 sticker greeting card. So it's essentially a sticker sheet greeting card. So the front and the back, the designs on it are stickers to be used. And I've been sending them, I think Bailey's been sending them.
Yeah.
Like anybody that has kids, like first of all, getting the snail mail, but then having the card be usable and like have stickers that you can then use has been really successful and just a really fun product. And also we love the concept that there's more interaction with the greeting card, but also it has another use besides like maybe putting in a keepsake box or just straight up recycling it. It's this thing that like also lives the second life when it gets into its cup.
Absolutely. I mean, I have really enjoyed watching stickers, like their ascent over the past, year or so, whether it's the die cut sheets or you guys putting on greeting cards, which is brilliant. Or the sticker sheets, which are like they're the little DIY set, really. It's a neat concept. I'm glad you guys are doing it. So.
Yeah, they're super fun. They're one of my favorite things to use too. They're just so like practical and you can just stick it on an envelope or whatever. Anyway, I'm like also my favorite, but no, I won't copy it. No. They're just so fun. But anyway, no, I think my favorite is like all of our calligraphy supplies, and it kind of always has been just because that's my shtick. That's my thing.
Right.
I put a lot of effort into like curating that stuff. And we have like a calligraphy practice pad that's like super beautiful, but also really practical for calligraphy because the slant lines are at a 55-degree angle, which is the angle you need to like practice at. So I think that is probably my favorite thing that we sell. And even though it's a little bit niche, and I think like I'm excited to hopefully expand more into that and like add more art supplies and calligraphy supplies. Cause I definitely, that sort of like making thing just seems like I'm just so inspired by that right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love it. And I know that you guys put a lot of thought into how you present them. And, like I go to my local Michael's all the time, but like stuff is not packaged creatively. Like it's not presented. Whoever's presenting it is, thinking about their profit per square foot. They're not thinking like, oh, what do my creative customer, like, what are they looking for? Like, what do they respond to? What do they like? Because, chances are it's not on a hang tag. But I cannot thank you guys enough for coming by. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much again, Emma and Bailey, for coming on the Paperfold. I so appreciate you're both taking the time to chat. And thank you so much for listening. As always, email me at sarah@thepapernerd with anything I can do for you. And if you are liking what you are hearing, please subscribe and leave me a good rating and review. I can't tell you how much that helps. Thank you so much, Paper Peeps. Please stay well.